Eu vou dividir com Valéria, dividir com o João e o João tem o dele.
Right, good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to have you back at the FAUBAI conference for one more day of hard work. The good news is that at the end of the day, we have a dinner together with caipirinha. It's my pleasure to introduce one more plenary session, FAUBAI 35 years and counting. It's a very special plenary session for us from FAUBAI, a moment to reflect upon what's happened in the last decades in terms of internationalization of higher education and FAUBAI specifically. We have a very nice roundtable composed by Professor Valéria Pattacini, Professor João Falcão and Cunha, Professor John Hudzik, Professor Thierry Valentin. I will leave it to the moderator to introduce them in more depth in a few minutes. But of course, this session will be moderated by the president of FAUBAI, Professor José Celso Freire Jr., whom I'd like to call here to launch this panel.
Thank you, Nicolas. Good morning, bom dia, bonjour, buenos dias. My name is José Celso Freire Jr. I am the Associate Provost for International Affairs at São Paulo State University, UNESP in São Paulo, and from today, the new president of FAUBAI. Thank you. It's a great pleasure for me to be here today coordinating this plenary session in commemoration of the 35th anniversary of FAUBAI, the Brazilian Association for International Education, which in its creation was called the Forum of Assistance of Brazilian Universities for International Affairs, for this FAUBAI. This morning, we'll talk a little about our past, but above all, look to the future. Since remembering and learning from the past is very important to move forward, I will take this opportunity to briefly present a list of the themes that have guided the association's previous conferences. As you will see, they tell a lot about the history of the internationalization of higher education in the country. I will not read, I will just give you the opportunity to read. We started in Portuguese, this is 98. You can see the first theme for the first conference, and after you just see the other themes. Then you will see that with all themes that are central to the internationalization of higher education, in some way, they were present at FAUBAI in some time. After starting the 21st century, all questions about cooperation so-sos, then it was present at FAUBAI and was proposed by FAUBAI a long time ago, more than 20 years ago. We introduced the theme of having a national policy for the internationalization of higher education. Then we have been talking about that for a long time. I believe it is time to really have this, the beginning of the development of a national policy for the internationalization of higher education. We talked about evaluation, the global universities, quality, innovation. new times, this internationalization of internalization of internationalization. Then it was very important. We discussed it in Rio, not the last conference, but before, why to cooperate with Brazilian universities. We talked a lot, and we have different actions in the context of the BRICS. 2014 and 2016, a big change. Our conference started to be in English. And here you have the last 5 themes for the conference that we had, being 2 in a virtual way. I should thank a lot René, our executive director, for finding and organizing this information. Thank you, René. Let's get back to our plenary session. First, I would like to introduce the panelists for this plenary session. Valéria Pattacini is a specialist in international cooperation and developed much of her career in the public sector, particularly in international education cooperation. She has experience in designing, managing, and evaluating science, technology, and innovation projects financed by international agencies and organizations. She's a professor and researcher responsible for international relations management at Universidad Nacional de San Martín, UNSAM, in Argentina. She's the author of publications and has given numerous conferences in Argentina and abroad on international cooperation, technical cooperation, South-South cooperation, middle-income countries, official development assistance, ODA, in Latin America, and internationalization of higher education. João Falcão Cunha is a professor at FEUP, the School of Engineering of the Universidad U.Porto in Portugal. He has been attending FAUBAI since 2008, after launching in 2005 the Mobile Student Exchange Program with Brazilian Universities Engineering Schools. He was the Dean of FEUP from 2014 to 2022 and a member of the Supervisory Board of Porto Business School 2014-2023. From 2013 to 2018, the Portuguese delegate to the European Union Horizon 2020 Committee on Smart, Green, and Integrated Transport. Previously, he was the director of the Industrial Engineering and Management Master and Doctoral Programs, Service Engineering and Management Master. John Hudzik is Vice President and Professor Emeritus at the Michigan State University in the United States, Emeritus NAFSA Senior Scholars for Internationalization and past President of NAFSA and IEA. He is the recipient of awards in internationalization like the IEA European Transatlantic Leadership Award, the IEAA Australia Award for Distinguished Contribution to the International Education, the AIEA Charles Classic Award for Outstanding Service to International Education, and Life Membership awarded by NAFSA for Distinguished and Sustained Contribution. He's the founding chair of the Center for Higher Education Internationalization Academic Board at Università Cattolica del Sacro Cuore, Milan, in Italy. He published frequently, especially on comprehensive internationalization and the future of internationalization. He's a regular invited speaker globally, like here today. Thierry Valentin is the Deputy Director General of Campus France in France. As a cooperation counselor, he joined the Embassy of France in Angola from 2019 to 2021. He was officer for Latin American at the France Conference of University Presidents from 2013 to 2015. He joined the Embassy of France in Brazil from 2008 to 2013 as director of the French-Brazilian Center for Technical and Scientific Documentation, Sendotec. He's a professor of anthropology at the Université Lumière Lyon 2, where he was Dean of the Faculty of Anthropology and Sociology and International Relations Vice President from 2005 to 2008. He served at the National University Council from 2005 to 2007. Professor Valentin holds a PhD in anthropology from the Université Lumière Lyon 2 and a PhD in sociology from Universidade Federal do Ceará, UFC, in Brazil. They all have a connection to our association. Valéria has been a long-time partner in actions associated with cooperation with Argentina and Latin America. João, as I mentioned, has been attending FAUBAI conferences for a long time. I remember our first meeting in Diamantina in 2011. I believe he will talk a little bit about that. At a conference with about 100 people and less than 10 international guests. John is a long-time friend of FAUBAI. At various times in recent history, he has been with us sharing his knowledge, experience, and above all, good humor and friendship. Thierry Chu is a friend of FAUBAI and seems to have been with us forever. In all his trajectory here in Brazil, he was always an available and present partner who helped a lot in the association's development. Even physically far away, he was always present and available to help. For these and other reasons, it's a great pleasure to count on all of them in this discussion, which, as we have agreed, will be conducted as follows. Initially, I will ask each of the panelists to give a brief introduction about the development of the internationalization of higher education in your region, in their region, and the last decades, and if possible, about the role of national or international associations and agencies in promoting the internationalization of higher education. After this introduction, I will ask each of them 3 questions, and I will open to the audience. Then, to start, I would like to ask Valéria for her introduction.
Morning. It's a real pleasure to be again in a FAUBAI conference and have the opportunity to share this 3rd plenary in Belo Horizonte because we are celebrating 35 years of FAUBAI. I think that it's a party. This session will be a party. And I really enjoy this situation because I think for Argentinian people, Argentinian leaders, FAUBAI is a big association that work together to enhance our public, institutional, and local policies linking local, national, regional, and global realities in different scenarios. I'm also glad to my intervention is today because the previous journeys have allowed me to take the pulse and the feelings through the plenary sessions and also in the casual meetings with many, many friends and colleagues from Brazilian universities, but also with many colleagues from Latin American universities when we, 2 years ago, are all Wednesday meeting online for Build INILAT, Chile, Brazil, Colombia, Peru, y Argentina. And Mexico, of course. Sorry about that. Thank you so much. FAUBAI is a place where I can talk with confidence about how we are challenged by the words of Bianca, first lecture. It shows us the meaning and the significance of inclusion. And what are talking about when we are talking about inclusion. But also, what are talking you about racism? It is very hard to us to understand you, and you help to us to translate these feelings and these needs to our reality. FAUBAI is the place to share the different challenges, their own visions, but our common mission. We have a common mission. All universities in the world have a common mission, shared mission, which is create, generate, and spread knowledge. Knowledge to discover, to distribute, to redistribute, to store, to produce, to invent, to sell, to criticize, and to repeat. This role is in redefinition and in a growing complexity and interaction between science, technology, society, new disciplines, the labor market, new actors in higher education ecosystems. Society demands global development's macro agendas and the imperative to open the doors to artificial intelligence and popular knowledge. All of these issues are in our agenda. From the Argentine point of view, we have an inflationary agenda. You know what I mean. But we must to do with very few instruments, not much power, and few resources. We had to deal with this. As practitioners and academics, one of the best tools that we have are theoretical and conceptual developments. Kyria mentioned yesterday that the academic theoretical debate on internationalization have been initially concentrated in some authors, one of men here with us. But FAUBAI is more and more a scenario for enhance these dialogues because in our region, in our countries, we are working harder to produce academic and policy papers linked to internationalization. We think together with this internationalization, what are our policies, practices, actions, actors, stakeholders? We are increasingly moving away from the traditionally mobility programs to more comprehensive policies and practice. The panels here, year by year, showed us as a proof of this way that FAUBAI built. Regarding our national and institutional realities, FAUBAI is a place to know better ourselves. So some highlights about Argentina higher education system. Argentina has 133 universities, half public and half private, but we have 80% of the total enrollment in the public universities and the main research centers within the universities. According in the last official survey, there are more than 2,100,000 students in more than 11,000 careers. In the last 12 years, in Argentina, university systems registered 24.2 gross students enrollment and a 12.2 increase in graduates. The increasing number of students showing university life is very important. This is inclusion. But our greatest challenge is the permanence and graduation. Only 25% of the new students finish their studies in the expected time. The number of students who study and work is very high, and this is only one of the main challenges. Less than 1% of our undergraduate students have the opportunity to study abroad. In 2020, the foreign students in Argentina represents the 4% of the student population of undergraduate students and the 8.4% for postgraduate students. But the origin of these foreign students, 95% is Latin American countries. This presence of foreign students in Argentina, among other reasons, can be explained by the openness of admission, no general exams, no fees in public universities for undergraduate students, a very affordable cost for graduate students in private universities. To provide some dimension on how we see internationalization, I take some data for this last survey of the International Association of Universities, where it says that government policy and international relations offices are the main drivers of the internationalization in Argentina. Public policy and ER offices, the main drivers of internationalization. I said that we have no power and less money. We never have a public strong policy. We don't have an agency like Campus France. We have a very small program called PIESI, Programa de Internacionalización de la Educación Superior en Argentina, a very small place with a small team, with small budget, but it's a place that since 20 years ago we built together with the private and public sector a network to work together. We have no big budget, but we could make a team together. I would like to share with you some other information, very basic, because we try to, I would like to recognize in this small group two friends, two public servants, Marina Larrea and Aya Stur, that we are friends of FAUBAI too, sorry. I said, we have never had science without borders, but we have a constant collaboration and dialogue between public and private rectors' council, and this program carry out different initiatives. The budgets allocated for strengthening have never been very significant, but they have pointed the way to go forward. One of the last initiatives I would like to share with you, during the pandemic, more than 70 universities from Argentina, public and private, conduct a self-evaluation program for the international dimension. And the imperative of an inclusive internationalization arise. So our main work is not outside. Nowadays, our main work is inside our institutions. We had to work together with the academic sector, with the research sector, with the public and local stakeholders. And finally, I would like to share with you that today in Argentina we have a very small political document with 7 points. One of these 7 points is inclusive internationalization. For us, it's very important to address this issue jointly. And for us, it's very important, maybe in 5 years, FAUBAI will be the place to evaluate the relevance, to recognize what has been achieved, and to be alert what we wrong. FAUBAI, every year, is the place to meet together, to think together, and during year by year is a place, the reference to share our policies, our challenges. We find here friends, colleagues, professionals to work together. And Celso, I would like to say that it's a duty to me to mention and invite all of you a la Feria Internacional de Educación Superior to be held place in Puerto Iguazu next year on March. So all of you are invited to visit us and continue this discussion. Thank you so much to be here, to join and celebrate the party of FAUBAI. Thank you, Celso. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Valeria. We are two sister countries, but we don't work a lot as I think, we don't work together a lot as I think we should do. Argentina, you have a policy for the internationalization of higher education. We don't have it in Brazil. You are developing a real strategy, a real proposal for a social cooperation. I was in Argentina 3 weeks ago for a meeting with African and Caribbean and Latin American institutions. Then I believe we have a lot to learn and share together. Thank you.
Thank you, Celso, for mentioning this. And only a point, Argentina had to work with Africa, South America, have the duty to work with other regions, but I said in all scenarios that we had to work with Brazil, never without Brazil.
Thank you, Valeria. Thierry, could you...
Okay, first of all, I want to thank FAUBAI and Celso to had invited me to this session with old friends like João and new friends like Valeria and John. Just in few words to say that for France, the last decade was not exactly the one we all dreamed about, not only in France, but also in the world. Something wrong had happened. That was not the plan. We had to face a lot of crises that we didn't predict. First of all, we didn't predict the rise of the new rise or the rise at its unseen level of populism, not only in Europe, but in other places of the world, and the return of empires. This is just not in cinema that the empire always strikes back, but we are seeing the rise of new empires, and it's a very new data to us. We didn't expect, of course, the crisis of the European model with the Brexit, and also with populism in certain countries of Europe. And we did not expect, of course, some wars in Syria, Afghanistan. Afghanistan was an old stuff, but it has been quite a new crisis, and of course, Ukraine. And today we'll have to have a special thought for our friends and colleagues in Sudan that quite recently, a civil war, not a civil war, but an internal war had started a few days ago. And I just want to have a special thought for them, as this country, for several reasons, is kind to me. Of course, with those wars, we didn't expect the crisis of the refugees. That is the result, a direct result, but not only of the wars. We can see the effect of economical crisis and now ecological crisis also in Africa that are driving a lot of people to Europe and to other parts of the world. We did not predict, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic, which has been quite a huge issue for all of us, and also the economic crisis and now the hyperinflation that is coming with this economical crisis. So that was not the plan, really. We were dreaming about a world much more open than it is now. And of course, the world wasn't ideal 10 years ago, but those threats are now challenging us, as it has never been the case. And this, for us and for you, of course, changed several things, not only the scale of cooperation, because a lot of cooperation had been cut during these ultimate years, but of course this changed the nature of cooperation. You know, we can't do any more cooperation like it was before those crises. Campus France in 2017 became the key actor of a French national strategy for attractiveness called Bienvenue en France in French, or Welcome to France in English. And this strategy was targeting to have about 500,000 foreign students, international students in France in 2027. We are now having about 400,000 international students in France. So the curve is quite good. And to get this objective completed, we defined various tools, such as increasing the number of French government grants, fellowships, which is, of course, a great leverage for increasing mobility, improving the quality of hospitality in university, improving and measuring and monitoring the increase of the quality of hospitality, facilitating administrative procedures, which is a huge question, not only in France, but in all the world, and also promoting diversity through portraits of our alumni in a specific communication campaign. If you're going to the booth of Campus France, the stand of Campus France, or if you have even been yesterday or the days before, you can see that we have 4 portraits of alumni, half women, half men from all over the world, and they are who represent the diversity. And they are real alumni. They are not actors that we had bought photos, pictures for it. So to conduct this strategy, we set up a monthly monitoring procedure involving all the ministries, all the agencies involved, also representative of higher education institutions. And when the crisis arrived, this procedure switched to a crisis response procedure, you know. And so that was first a plan, you know, project to attract more students. And the fact that everybody was talking together and acting together in this strategy allowed us to switch to an urgent procedure as quick as the emergencies came. So this allows us to quickly give some response, like, for example, to decide to keep the French borders open during the pandemic of COVID-19 to academic students. Studying in France was an imperial reason to get in France, either with the borders closed. Our decision that has been made at that time was to guarantee the assistance for international students in vulnerable situations, and of course a lot of them were. And a third example, it has been our capacity of taking quick decision to welcome Ukrainian students. All those measures was not so easy to take, as France, like other countries in Europe, are facing political discourses from extreme right parties that are against migration, including international students. So saying that in times of crisis, we are using French taxpayers' money to help students from overseas, it's not always an easy stuff. Also, a very new thing to us in the last decade was during the French presidency of the European Union, the launch of European universities. That has been first an idea of our President Macron, the French president. Then the European Union take that idea and develop that idea. We have now 44 European universities. The project is that they will award real European diplomas in a few years. So this is a kind of response to the crisis of the European Union, also to help continue building the Union by creating European universities and by promoting them abroad also. Just to conclude about this first question, I want to say that those questions are very shared with our European sister agencies. I know that DAAD is here. I don't know if somebody from NEFIC is present also in the conference. But together with DAAD and NEFIC, for example, Campus France had written an article on the website of AIA. It's always complicated. We all have the same names, quite the same. And the title of this article is Leaving No One Behind, Providing Higher Education in Emergencies. So that was very important to us to write this article, using our common experience about helping student refugees from Syria. But also to show that this example, this theme can be extended to the issue of the inclusion of other groups that are excluded or have difficulties in accessing higher education. So leaving no one behind is a very important theme to us now in Europe, specifically in those times. Thank you.
Thank you, Thierry. You mentioned different topics that I believe are very important and of interest, not only for Brazil, but for all countries in the world when thinking about inclusion and friendship. But I would just take one point that for me, it's very important for Brazil, that is the attraction of international students. And remember, public universities in Brazil don't charge anything like in Argentina, like in France, and Germany, for example, and we are open to attract students. But there is a kind of fight for international students. Then it is the moment for me, for Brazil, to create a kind of Campus Brazil agency or something like that. If you really want to attract people, if you really want to be a player in this international scenario, we should have the same tools other countries have. It will not be a fight. Each one can offer different opportunities for different people. But if we will play in this room, we should have the best tools as a lot of other countries in the world they have. Thank you. Now, please, John. John, not João, it's you.
Technical pause. Well, no, that's good. That's good because that was the start. Bom dia. Okay, pretty good. There's life out there. Can you hear me? Too bad. So, I'm very happy to be here again. I've been, I think this is about my 7th time to Brazil. And every time I come back, it's a new great experience. It's a great country and it's a great people. So you should be proud of yourselves for that and many other reasons. It's, I think, important to say, happy birthday, FAUBAI. 35, right? And that is no small accomplishment in these days. Celso asked me to say a few things based on my experience in dealing with international education associations around the world. But I've added an assignment to that piece of it. And that assignment is to think about, among other things, what is among the most important things I've learned about successful international education associations any place. And it is the importance of leadership in those associations. Leadership to get off the ground, but more importantly, when not everybody's excited anymore, leadership for sustainability. Brazil and FAUBAI, I've been blessed to have had leadership and creativity at very high levels, but none more than the leadership of Celso and all that he's done to bring this organization along the way over the long run. I don't know how he gets this staying power to keep pushing the organization forward, but Celso, you are a wonderful leader, a great personality, and a good friend. And those are three good things to have. So, I do have some comments to make. And I base my comments on experiences with probably 10 or 11 of the 15 or 20 or so international education associations around the world. This is important, and it's our reason for being. I do it in Latin, but I don't know if anybody knows Latin anymore. First and foremost, FAUBAI and all of these associations are professional associations. Why? Because they focus on serving the profession, you folks out there, in their careers and their jobs, and to meet their needs in doing their careers and jobs. That's the reason for having a FAUBAI. And that's what FAUBAI does very well. It provides access to a body of knowledge and practice through leadership, through training and education programs, through conferences, through publications, through you name it, all the things that FAUBAI and other organizations do. What's perhaps most important is that they provide opportunities like this for you to learn from one another. Just the meeting with other international educators, whether it's having fun or not having fun doing it, is very important because you learn from one another. Most importantly in this list, however, associations identify constantly evolving best practices and needs in the field to advance the public interest and higher education. And any of you who've spent more than one day in this field of international education know how it seems to be constantly changing in terms of priorities and things to pay attention to and the rest of it. The half-life of useful knowledge in international education, I think, is less than the half-life of useful knowledge in engineering, which is about 3.5 years. So to have the opportunity to meet with one another is critical. Now, there are numerous such associations around the world. It depends on who and what you count. My list has 15 to 20. And I've had association with, I won't say all of them, that wouldn't be true, but with most of them, I think. Now, the first of these associations was a thing called, which probably most of you have heard about, NAFSA, N-A-F-S-A. It's an acronym. It was founded in 1948 to support the huge post-World War II boom in the movement of students and scholars across borders. NAFSA, acronym, are you ready for this? Old-time language, National Association of Foreign Student Advisors. I don't know about you guys, we don't use that word anymore, foreign. International students, that gets closer to our mark. NAFSA's first annual meeting, and I don't know what it was for FAUBAI, had around 100 attendees. Wow. 1988, that number had grown to 3,000. The annual conference now, without the help of COVID, the annual conference now attracts about 10 to 11,000 international educators. Here's something not commonly known though. 30 to 40% of those who attend come from outside the United States. And that may be the best news in the big number, okay, that they're not all from the same place. There are big challenges for international education associations today. A lot of big ones, but I'm going to focus on only two. One is the change, the tremendous change in global higher education. Just in the last decade, but you go back 2 decades, but 1 decade would be enough. And the huge change that is taking place in the meaning of international education. So it's higher education and international education. So let's look at higher education first of all, in a global sense. We're on our way to having somewhere around 400 to 450 million higher education students in institutions throughout the world until COVID. I don't know where we are now. New data have now been published that I can feel is reliable, but probably 350 million, something like that. 80 to 90% of that growth, 80 to 90% of that growth is outside North America and Europe. It's every place else, okay? So hang on, you're in for a big ride. Second, so I talked about teaching. Second, research. Research, I'm going to show some numbers later today in another presentation, but there has been a huge leveling up of research capacity and knowledge creation around the globe. It's almost no place. I'll fix that. There is no place yet you can go around this globe and not find creativity and new knowledge. So where do the best ideas come from? Every place. Not just a couple of continents. That has some implications for who you choose to partner with and do business with. The options for collaboration have exploded in the area of knowledge creation and also in instruction. So it's not just about higher education, but it's about all three. This is something I'm going to emphasize. All three key missions of higher education: teaching, learning, research scholarship, community engagement, and problem solving. Don't forget that last one. We do a very good job of that in higher education, forgetting about community engagement and community problem solving. If the community's not happy, well, we're not going to be happy for long. So it means attention to the world, not just to a few countries. The global scale and program diversity of higher education, and now higher education internationalization, has, as I said earlier, exploded in the last decade or two. Now, I've got nothing against mobility. I'm all in favor of mobility. When I was Dean of International Programs at Michigan State University, under orders, of course, happily so, grew our university's mobility program to the largest in the country, about 3,300 students a year that we were sending abroad. But there is a problem, a big problem, with a focus on mobility. And that problem falls into two sort of broad categories. One is, did I hear that a theme of this conference is equity, inclusion, and access? Mobility is the opposite of that. At best case scenario in almost every country, I know Europeans count things differently, but in almost any country, 5% of students get to go abroad. What do you do with the rest of them in terms of getting them access to international knowledge and so forth? Dealing with that problem is why some of these other things that I'm going to list right now have begun to show up. So, associations such as NAFSA and AIEA and EAIE and whatever alphabet you want to mix up, you got one, okay? So here are the topics that you find on programs now. Comprehensive campus internationalization, programs for campus presidents and provosts on leadership for internationalization. It'd be good to have those guys and ladies along, I think. Internationalizing on-campus curriculum and coursework. That's a biggie. 5% go abroad, the other 95%, what do they get? You better think about what the internationalizing options are in your curricula on campus. Or equity is a pipe dream. Programming to internationalize particular disciplines, all disciplines. An expansion of advanced programming from senior international officers, supporting research and publication on international education. So that list can go on forever. That stuff was sort of around, but not around very much 20 years ago. If your feet are stuck in mobility, that's okay. There's some good mud there, all right? But it's important not to ignore these other things. Now, with this comes some challenges, and I'm going to finish with this. That's so Celso doesn't feel as though he has to get the shepherd's crook. Every time you see somebody getting nervous in the back, you say, I'm going to finish with this, okay? So here's the thing I'm going to finish with. What happens when the world we serve, quote unquote, higher education, and our area of that world, internationalization, becomes larger and more complex? What happens to the associations that have to serve them if they're going to do their job? And that is, they too will grow in size and complexity. And this has happened now with several associations around the world. NAFSA, 11,000, okay. AIEA was formed to get away from the bigness. It's now quite big itself now. EAIE, the last time I looked, had about 7,000 people in attendance. API is going up. You know, you're on your way up with numbers in the longer run. So that creates some interesting challenges for organizations. How do you fund them? How do you keep everybody happy? Because now you got a room full of people who don't all have the same goals in life. I'm education abroad, I'm international students and scholars, I'm research on internationalization. It becomes very complex. And in many fields, what happens is, when it gets big like that, you have certain groups saying, okay, you're not doing enough for us, so we're going to break off. And that happened in the United States. AIEA broke off from NAFSA to form an organization that at that time specialized in serving senior international officers. The Forum, which you've probably heard about, broke off a few years ago to service the needs of study abroad. However, I want to really make a very important point about this. That is no different than any other professional field. If you look at associations for law, attorneys, medical associations, engineering associations, all the rest of it, guess what they look like? They have usually one or two big organizations that catches everybody, and then 5, 6, 7, 8 specialty organizations, electrical engineering or cardiovascular association and so forth. There's plenty of room for associations, especially when, as is in the case in the States, there's huge overlapping membership. you would end up belonging to 2 or 3 of these associations and attending 2 or 3 meetings a year, specialty meetings and general meetings. So there is this challenge of size facing us all, and the challenge of programmatic diversity facing us all. So truly it is the end, because I leave you with a question. Where is FAUBAI headed in this changing world of higher education internationalization, and international education? Thank you.
Thank you, John. A personal experience. I started in this position at UNESP 14 years ago. And as I believe all Brazilians here, all people, all senior international officers in Brazil, we are all a faculty member. Then, from one day to another, you just become from engineer to senior international officer. You should learn. FAUBAI plays a big role in this process. But I remember the first time I was looking for books and papers, looking to comprehensive internationalization. And I said, this is very nice. And for me personally, it's a huge pleasure to have you here today as a friend and as a friend of FAUBAI. Thank you for being here. It's really special to have you here and talking and being open to anyone in this room. Then really thank you a lot. Thanks, John. Thank you. But so I would just address one point, the question of mobility and internationalization at home, just mentioning that FAUBAI is organizing in the second semester, end of October, beginning of November, the IVEC conference, that in some way is connected to the last point addressed by John, because IVEC became an association for virtual exchange. Then it is a specialized association that will address points connected to virtual exchange. Then FAUBAI and UNESP, we are organizing in the second semester. We invite you all to be with us. And a very important point for those from Latin America, we negotiated, and it is a real inclusion policy. The prices for people coming from Latin America are almost half of the full prices. Then you are really invited, and the association is thinking about inclusion because they are offering a special rate for people coming from Latin America. Then come with us in the second semester. Now, absolutely not least, João from the University of Porto. Please, João. Yeah.
Bom dia. I've been told to speak in English, but I'm going to teach some words of Portuguese for the ones who don't know me. So, bom dia means good morning. And obrigado means thank you. So I would like to thank all those that invited me, in particular Celso. I don't know if you know, but Celso is the man in the middle. And it was his birthday. And he's the new president of FAUBAI, and this mostly a friend. So thank you for inviting me, Celso. And Renee, she was sitting here. I lost her, but I found her again. Thank you for inviting me. And I must warn you that my presentation is very short, but has some errors. So you can check if I'm not GPT. Okay, and I can tell you that I prepared this presentation with ChatGPT, which I call Gato GPT. And for the English that don't know French, chat means gato, which means cat. And I'm also very fond to have Thierry as a colleague, because he can check if I'm saying the correct thing. In fact, last time I saw him, it was not a very good occasion. Well, it was a very good occasion. First, I'll tell you the very good occasion. It was FAUBAI, 2019, and there was a disaster in France. The Notre Dame Cathedral was on fire. I hope now it's recovered. Okay, so I can visit again. And he will invite me for lunch. He cannot say no here. Anyway, I'm here also because my dean, Rui Calçado, sitting there, authorized my trip. Thank you. And because Liliana, who's from the University of Porto, is doing all the hard work, so I can tell jokes. Anyway, I would like to make the presentation. I think this is the last slide, but I'll try to go to the first one. No, this is to show that Celso was right. So, FAUBAI, sorry, this is 1988, it started, and it had another name as well. It's written there in Portuguese. You can use Google Translate or DeepL to see what it means in English. And these are the first FAUBAIs, and I'm terribly sorry, but I missed them. In fact, the first FAUBAI I went to was this one, in Bonito. And it was an experience that changed my life. So thank you, FAUBAI, for changing my life. Anyway, I'm going to ask some questions. I agreed with Celso on that. Do you know something called Erasmus? So I cannot speak about Erasmus. Anyway, Erasmus started in 1987, and in the beginning it had like 3,000 movements of students in Europe. Now it has around 300,000 movement, not only of students, because now it's comprehensive. Anyone can move with Erasmus. And I'll tell you why Portugal is smaller in that Erasmus Plus logo. You see, Erasmus Plus and Portugal. Because Erasmus has moved more people than the population of Portugal. So if it was Erasmus Plus Brazil, Brazil was larger than Erasmus Plus. I don't know, but it's a large country. And I love to come to Brazil. I'm almost Brazilian. Well, this means that FAUBAI was born 1 year after Erasmus. So they're almost the same age. And we had also something called Bologna process. I'm sure you don't want to hear about Bologna because it's a city in Italy. And I'm not from Italy, but I'm from Europe. Anyway, I know you know the objective, so I will not speak about it. But Celso also told, oh, sorry, I must go to the presentation again. I forgot it. Okay, so Bonito was my first. This means I'm 15 years old in FAUBAI. I'm a teenager in FAUBAI. And these are the presidents of FAUBAI since I came to FAUBAI. In fact, there is an error there. Can you guess the error? Renee? She was not president, but she's like a president. But the FAUBAI doesn't live only of presidents. It lives usually of 3 musketeers, which are 4. And because we have to have thoughts about gender, how do you say it, gender? Equality. I have to balance this, so I put the 3 musketeers. But there are many more, in fact. I'll show you just some pictures. This was Bonito's team, and Bonito was a very beautiful. Bonito means beautiful, by the way, if you don't know. But Bonito is more than beautiful, in fact. But this FAUBAI at the time was just these people. Well, managing FAUBAI. In fact, there were a few people more. I'm not in the photo because I was taking the photo. Then it grew. Some of you can see yourselves there, and I could put all the photos, but I didn't have time. In fact, I was told that because I was the last, I wouldn't have time, so I'll have to say everything now, because I might not have time to say more things. And some things have already been told. Anyway, this is the end of my presentation. The error in this slide, and the first one was that 17 is not today. But no one noticed, I hope. Anyway, Erasmus, I'm going back to Erasmus, and I've checked the internet, not GPT, Google, and it said that Europe has today 748,904,675 people. 6, 7, 8. Okay, so 300,000 people moving in Europe is not that much. And another initiatives, you've seen Campus France. Campus France is also a very important European initiative for mobility. You have here the person in charge of the representation of France in Brazil, not only in Brazil now, but also a good friend. And DAD is also there in blue, and another friend of FAUBAI is sitting in the audience. And Italy and the United Kingdom, those numbers of population include the United Kingdom, although the United Kingdom is not longer in EU, which is a pity, but they will change again. And of course, Spain and other countries have their own agencies. And I was going to say something, but Celso already said it. Brazil needs an agency as well to compete. And I even have a name for it. In fact, I have 2 names I propose. One is FAUBAI, because FAUBAI is used to change the name, but keep the acronym. So it could arrange another mission for FAUBAI, because FAUBAI is known all over the world. The other possibility is to call it Amazonia and sue Amazon for using the name of Brazilian forest. Or then you can have other alternatives. Anyway, but I'll go to the end, and I'll repeat it if I have time. But I think FAUBAI is so well known. I'll have time? Okay, so I won't say it now. I don't know what to say more, so I'll shut up. Thank you very much for listening to me. Muito obrigado por me escutarem, means thank you very much for listening to me. And I hope to say something else if I have time. Thank you very much. And my email is there, if you need me to introduce you to René. Thank you, René.
Thank you, João. I believe João's speech shows what we try to do in this plenary session. Have a conversation among friends, talking a little bit about the history of FAUBAI, but more than that, think about the future. John introduced some ideas, he mentioned Valéria, that presented what other people in other parts of the world are doing. And with this invitation of John and João, I believe FAUBAI, as an association, we should think about our future. And this is the invitation for the next 2 years. Work with us to build the FAUBAI that will stay for the next 20 years, for the next 15 years to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the association. Be with us. It will be a pleasure to continue to discuss with everybody. We don't have a lot of time. No, we don't have. I will have 1 or 2 questions that I will, general questions from the audience. I will not ask the panelists. If you have it, please, there's someone there I can see. Please introduce yourself and make the question.
Okay. Am I first? Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I'm Johanna Kivimäki, the Counselor of Higher Education and Science in the Consulate of Finland in Sao Paulo. I'm really pleased to be here. It's my second time in FAUBAI. I was in another position here in 2016 in Fortaleza. So yeah, I'm pleased to be back here today. Thanks for the really interesting discussions. I was thinking about asking a bit or commenting a bit about more on the policy level discussion, and you mentioned, President, about the plans to create the internationalization policy for the higher education for Brazil. Just maybe I'm a bit curious to know if there's like a real movement towards it, and how do you envision the role of FAUBAI in this process? I've been participating in similar processes in Finland, and I think it's great, and altogether the initiative and the process of creating and negotiating this kind of national strategy is very important to kind of reach and like plan those joint goals, and it's the most important step, I think, in creating more even than the paper. But then, of course, it's very instrumental for then having the instruments to also maybe national instruments to support the internationalization. So I'm just like, how do you envision FAUBAI's role in this process? And for instance, in Finland, it was led by the Ministry of Education. So do you have discussions, and how is there plans for bringing forward this process? Then maybe more general discussion about like the international global science and education policy. I know that the internationalization associations are not necessarily very vocal or participating very vocally in these global science policy discussions, but especially now that we have been discussing a lot this need for strengthening the global southern voice and the role of global south in international higher education. So, like, do you see a role for internationalization associations? Maybe this is general for all in these discussions. I mean, for instance, we discussed yesterday about the rankings and how they don't match, for instance, with the university's social role. Or the same with the kind of global research assessment, like they don't really appreciate social impact as part of research excellence and so forth, or the English language as the priority language for publications, which are all issues that touch upon or kind of make maybe the Latin American universities struggle in the global system. So just like, could there be a role, and if there was a role for instance, FAUBAI, how would that voice be? Thanks.
Thank you. I believe the question is, I will take it. You touched several points. I will not address all the points, but I will just say that this afternoon we will have a plenary session with the Secretary for Higher Education, the Brazilian Secretary for Higher Education, that is Professor Denise, a former rector, president of the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. She will be here with us. And Professor Rui Opperman, the former rector of the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul, who is the new Director for International Affairs at CAPES. CAPES is the federal agency responsible for the postgraduate system, for the evaluation and for funding the Brazilian higher education postgraduate system. Then, just saying that they will be here, but not only that. FAUBAI have been working with the associations for different in different moments, and I believe, answering your question, I believe that in countries like Brazil, where we don't have an international policy for internationalization of higher education, FAUBAI have been playing an important role in the last years, training people, explaining to people how they can think about internationalizing their institutions. And we have been working with the government, not in the last 4 years, we should say. And we think that this is the moment where we can work even close to plan. Then come to this afternoon plenary, you have different points. We are just finishing, but I should show something to you, then we'll finish. Sorry, sorry, we don't have time. Sorry. 2 questions, but very quickly, and we will finish here, and Marcio, and we finish.
Yeah, this is not a question. This is just to say felicitaciones. I am Natalia Hernandez. I'm representing the Colombian Network for the Internationalization of Higher Education, RCI, of the Colombian Association of Universities, and I'm also representing INILAT. So I just wanted to say, yeah, felicitaciones, and we really hope to be growing together, and hopefully, like John said, in a funny way, to keep having fun in this internationalization sector. And I'm sure there is a bright future for all of us. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. This is a wonderful initiative, different associations from Latin America talking together. It's not an association of associations, it's just a group of associations addressing different points that could help universities in the region to develop their internationalization process. Thanks. Last one.
Celso, thank you. I'm Marcio Weichert of the DED. The German Academic Exchange Service was remembered by the members of the roundtable, and that's why I decided to say some words. It's not a question. So I'm older than João at FAUBAI. So my first FAUBAI was in Maceió 2006, and so I'm old, a dinosaur here in this session as well. And if we look back, we see how it developed, have been developing these years. So that time was a small meeting with 100 participants, 5 representatives from abroad, from foreign institutions, me, Campus France, British Council, Education USA, Fulbright. So that we were not too much there. And discussions were on other level, and discussing internationalization. If you look nowadays, the stage in that we are is very well. So in the name of the team Germany, I hope I think many are here in the auditorium, so we thank you. Celso, congratulations for your anniversary. Congratulations to FAUBAI. And please keep us together with annual meetings in person, not virtual. So that, because this is a very, aggregate value of FAUBAI. Be together here in a local. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Márcio. Just a few minutes, please. After this wonderful conversation, I'm sorry we did not have time for questions, but people will be here in the Minas Centro. Please address them directly. Then let's talk a little bit about future. Let's talk a little bit about the next year conference. Where it will be? Please.
What if a city could offer you everything? Offer you the most complete and professional events infrastructure in Latin America, while also offering the best of Brazil's rich cultural diversity. Welcome to São Paulo. The Southern Hemisphere's largest metropolis is not just a big city. São Paulo is the heartbeat of the Brazilian economy. It's headquarters of 63% of all multinational companies in Brazil and almost half of all domestic trade fairs and event markets. Three major airports connect São Paulo to the largest cities in the world. It is the home to large international hotel chains, world-class healthcare services, and local cuisine that brims with flavor, tradition, and sophistication. And wherever you are, there is always something new and exciting to do. Each district has its own identity, style, and offers a unique experience. All of them offer full infrastructure to host your event, whatever the size or the sector. Faria Lima and Itaim, one of the city's main business districts and a true tech hub. Vila Madalena, the city's most bohemian neighborhood, is also found here. Cool, artistic, and full of expression. Ibirapuera and Moema. Here, quality of life and delicious flavors mix in a business atmosphere. Where the Ibirapuera Park is located, with all its beauty and museums. It's the place of art, fashion shows, and entertainment events. Behini. Here, you will find a business atmosphere with modern architecture, impressive buildings, and big multinational company headquarters. Paulista and Jardins. Well known for its financial and cultural relevance, Paulista Avenue is one of the city's most sophisticated areas, full of tourist attractions, museums, cinemas, restaurants, nightlife, and the largest concentration of hotels in the city, North, Downtown, and East Region. This is the historic heart of the city, where it all began. The scene of big shows, revolutions, and cultural expression. Each one of these districts offers a complete experience for your group and event with comfort and safety. São Paulo is a big city in constant transformation, full of small universes, secrets, flavors, and of course, people who will welcome you with open arms. Come visit and be amazed.
Then we invite you all to be with us next year in Brazil, in April again. From April 20 to 24th, you are more than welcome. And please invite your friends. It is, as you can see, a great pleasure to share, to learn, and to make new friends. Be with us next year in São Paulo. It will be a huge pleasure. Now we have a coffee break in which side? In this, in my right side, and after we'll, in this side, and after we'll have our parallel sessions, lunch at 12:30, and after the second plenary of the day with the Secretary for Higher Education and the Director for International Relations at CAPES. And once again, Thanks for being with us today.